I don't like sleeping outside. You know, there's a lot of noise outside. And it bugs me. It makes me have really weird dreams. And, you know, I would always have to sleep with one eye open. Be afraid someone was going to come up. And, you know, it happened a couple times. I did get beat out of me real bad once when I was asleep. I woke up getting beat out of me by like 7 kids.
Everything was just going backwards, I guess you would say, being as I didn't have a home to go to or anything. So I was just running around in my car, living in my car.
I hope to just be happy. I don't want to live out of a box and think that at any moment I could be evicted for not paying rent one time a month or it was late.
Having a record is so much harder than a clean slate. So much harder. I'm judged as soon as they see that paperwork. Oh, he's just gonna do this, he's gonna do that. Give me a chance.
Why you deny me housing? What's in my background that's denying me housing? I sleep in a tent up on the 83 across from Dunkin' Donuts, man. That's where I've been sleeping at.
Some of the stuff that homeless people go through ain't their fault. They didn't choose it. They didn't want it. It happened. And by the grace of God, you survive. Hallelujah. It's been a blessing. It has truly been a blessing through several mishaps or valleys and trials in life, from homelessness to criminal to sickness to everything. I've found ACA staff to be very helpful, man. I wouldn't have known what I would have done without them, for real. For one, I was in the federal halfway house. You had to come here for medical. And I was just coming back into society. So I had to live with my sister who also had bless her soul, she had mental issues. And in our community, we don't talk about mental issues. We don't realize it, we just deal with them. And it started wearing out on me because I had just come home from prison for doing what I had done, and I had did the crime, I did the time, and I was eager to get started back with life.
He has money orders?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll have to get that picked up from you. Just have to hold on to it.
Okay.
And we'll get the keys. He can get in today, so we'll get the keys.
Awesome.
I ran into so many obstacles that barred one from with a felony, with a cash flow problem, with employment problem. It was devastating. So to continue coming down here to talk to the psychiatrist and the therapist and them assisting me, it gave me a way to realize that, hey, I'm not crazy after all. Because with the things that were going on in my life, I was on the brink of insanity. Woo! Give me some. Give me some. I'm not trying here to get this. Thank you. Shucks.
Excited
Get
for
this.
you.
Thank you so much. And welcome to my building. And I put work in, y'all. Woo! I got all the stuff out of storage. My mother's stuff, my sister's stuff, my brother's stuff, because they all passed away. Try to keep your mind. It was, at that time, I didn't know what to do. Friday, we signed that lease. I just went there, I just went there and stepped on the floor. I was just that jubilant that this mess is over. That's my mom. That's my mom. It's a little pillow my daughter got me made. Even when all my stuff was in stores, I kept this with me. I'm hoping she's proud of me. I'm hoping she liked the place. because she's gonna be right here with me the whole time. So, love you, Mom.
This is my coffee pot that was given to me by my best friend for a housewarming gift, because she knows I love my coffee. I got a phone call saying that I was accepted to Virginia Towers, and that was 17th of last month. And then I came here to fill out the forms, and the property manager explained things to me, what that was on the lease, and told me that I was accepted with all my paperwork was in order, with me having a low income, and I moved in here on the 19th of last month. This was given to me from the shelter when I moved in here, queen size bed. This is my certificate that I received in October when I was told that I was cancer free of my lung, that the cancer was gone out of my lung.
We're across the street from the emergency room.
Across the street, okay. All right. That's about it. Thank you.
My older sister put me out where I was living with her in a trailer park. So I was just running around in my car, living in my car, turn the engine on, turn the heat on, turn the engine off, doze off, then hear a noise, car ride past behind me, turn the engine back on again, turn the heat back on again. So it was up and down all night long, you know. Everything was just going backwards, I guess you would say, being as I didn't have a home to go to or anything. And I ended up in the shelter.
This location is unique in that we have a shelter right underneath us. So sometimes how clients access us, it may be for an urgent need that they couldn't get to a provider that they've seen previously, or to establish care because they just haven't been in care. But also I have clients who come in, literally their main complaint is my chief complaint of what they want addressed is their housing. So they'll say that on their initial, why did you come see me today? I want help with my housing.
I remember back a lot of things that made me very, very happy while I was in the shelter there. I guess that's how I got through it, being there in the shelter, remembering the happy times that I had when I was not there. I tried to focus on a lot of things that made me happy, but then things that made me happy made me sad at the same time.
There are many people, and I suspect a lot of people are living kind of right on the edge, and it just takes one significant life event to push them into homelessness. And when that happens, there's not an obvious way out. And there are programs like rapid rehousing that in some circumstances can be useful, but if someone now has a disability and it's not like they just need a couple months and they can get back to work, if that's not feasible and they need ongoing support, there's not a lot of options sometimes.
A voucher is a term that we use when somebody receives subsidized housing. So subsidized housing typically will cover 2/3 of somebody's rent based off their income.
When I have a client who doesn't have a stable place to stay, maybe they're sleeping in an abandoned house, maybe they are going from house to house every other day, they have to find a new place to stay, or they're sleeping on the street or in the shelter, we will do a coordinated access application. So recently, I've done a number of coordinated access applications where I go through their history in the past 3 years. I identify pretty much all of the places that they've stayed.
Any health history that they have, and they also have to provide documentation, your birth certificate, your ID, your social security card, your income paperwork. Here's where things get tricky. If you've been living on the street and you've been in the elements, a lot of those documents either can be damaged, misplaced, or lost, which means now you need advocacy and help going out and receiving these documents, which can take time. Not only do you have to go through a waiting list to get your voucher, but you're not even eligible yet until you get those forms. And also you need a mailing address, so sometimes items can be mailed here or to loved ones. So those are some of the hoops and hurdles many people go through, and even then you could be on a waiting list for a long period of time depending on your need, what vouchers available. So once somebody receives a voucher, they're first educated on the voucher, what pertains to it. Then they're able to look for housing. With the housing, it goes based off of what's the market rate for that area that they look for. Those places also have to pass an inspection. If that landlord can't pass an inspection 2 or 3 times, then that voucher is rescinded and you have to now find another place to live at and go through that process again. And some vouchers are very time sensitive, so you have a tiny window, which could be 90 days. It could be several months. It could be a little over a year.
You know, once in a while we do get someone come along who actually has, you know, they're getting the disability payments, which might be upwards of $800 a month, and they have an ID, in which case, this is great. We might actually be able to help this person find housing. It's still very, very difficult to find affordable and decent housing at that rate, but at least it's an option. Whereas if someone comes in and has $0, or maybe they get the TDAP, which is around $200, you know, renting a place is just not, it's not an option.
If you're not making a certain amount of money to suit whomever you're going to see in the apartment that's got houses for rent, Section 8 housing, if you don't have enough income to cover the bills, you're not going to get a place to live. They want you to get out and get a job.
I'm on disability, so they just took it up to $830 a month. Thank God. But the SOAR program pays 70% of that. Without that, listen, when I was filling out them applications, first of all, you have to fill out, you got to give them an application fee. Some of them are $25, some of them $50. They range, I found them from $25 to $100. Nobody on a fixed income, and then to get turned down. You just give, I've found myself just scrumming up $25, $50 to fill out an application that I'm getting turned down for anyway, because they're going to check your criminal background, they're going to check your credit score.
One place I want to see about getting an apartment in Essex, they turned me down because I had no credit.
This one landlord that just did not want this client in because the client had a voucher. He wanted to live near the John Hopkins area. There was an apartment. Apartment was definitely within the scope of his voucher. And the landlord used, I'm going to use the terminology that the landlord used. I'm not going to let this drug addict junkie move into my apartment when I can rent it out to one of my students.
During my time at Healthcare for the Homeless, I've gotten more and more frustrated with the fact that you know, these kind of incremental changes that we're trying to make and policy aren't really having the intended effect. For a lot of people, we're able to solve homelessness, you know, like one case at a time, with people really digging in and providing a lot of support to a person navigating these really complex systems. But we still haven't done a very good job of addressing the reason that there's this complicated system in the first place.
Now we're talking about addressing structural inequities, and specifically structural racism, you know, and being willing to tell the truth and ask ourselves, you know, how are we indicted in this process? How we contributed to the realities of individuals who are suffering? And so we now have a responsibility to look at these things at every level and address them at every level. So I think as an institution, we ourselves can utilize, you know, our positional power, our our political capital, our social capital, and even financial capital as we're working with other individuals to really try to move the needle as it pertains to addressing the structural issues that do exist.
And so when I look at a complicated system like the myriad of steps that a person needs to go through to get access to housing, I have to, you have to look at that and say, well, clearly we don't want you to have that housing. If we wanted you to have that housing, we would have made it so much simpler for you.
Baltimore is known as the cradle for housing segregation, or the city that's really been one of the pioneers for housing segregation, right? And many other cities across the U.S. have used the model of Baltimore to create some of the same inequities and disparities that exist, across urban areas. Those are the realities that have affected us over time.
We have carved up our communities in such a ways that communities that are rich in resources have been insulated from having affordable housing development happen in their neighborhoods, both in terms of land availability, the kind of fervent NIMBYism, the not in my backyard kind of mentality, and then we have these financial systems that are set up that says, well, we'll give you incentives to make affordable housing, but not in Roland Park, not in Kenton, not in Fells Point.
Because we're a city that is majority brown and black, and that majority of brown and black faces are also our lowest income workers and are individuals who struggle more in various areas. Those are the people who would be going after those affordable houses, those affordable units. And is that the actual problem? I don't believe that it's the affordableness of the house. I think it's who your neighbors become when things become affordable and what that perceived change might do to your neighborhood.
If we're really going to look at how to solve the problem of homelessness, we also need to talk about home ownership. We need to talk about why housing is the hot commodity right now. Why there have been more luxury homes built than affordable homes. People see housing as a commodity and not as a human right.
DC has expanded tremendously, and so have prices. So we see folks pushing into Baltimore from a real estate perspective. What does that mean for our folks who are in need here? Are we going to go by the way of DC and push them elsewhere, or are we going to make space for everyone? And I think that's a decision that we as a community in Baltimore, we as folks who vote, we as folks who live here, that's a decision that we need to make, and it's one I think that's really important. The organization, staff of the organization realized that we needed more. We needed to be able to do more. While we were thankful for what the city was able to give us and we utilized those resources, we needed to be able to do more, and the only way to do more was to take on housing ourselves. We believe that everybody deserves to go home. We believe that housing is healthcare, which naturally means that we are going to try to keep people near their homes and near their families and near their communities and near their loved ones, because that is part of the community that helps someone with healing.
Yeah, so this is it. These are the front steps to Sojourner Place at Oliver, which is so cool. Like, all the people who are going to be living here, anybody that's from a community that wants to come and do stuff, it is here, it is real.
As we expand into housing, how do we do so in a way and in a shape and a form and in a place where it's not creating something that's new and shiny, but it's creating something that is a community feel, where people still feel like they are attached and connected to their community.
So like Preston and Hartford are really heavily trafficked. This Central is not nearly as bad, so I think it'll be pretty easy for our families to be able to get over there and be able to get to school and use the playground and all of that.
Having that home or having a place to go where you can actually take the time for yourself is really important, and that's why housing is healthcare. It's hard to get well if you don't have a place to do so.
I think being able to create spaces such as Sojourner Place at Oliver, 70 units, is a start, but also it shows that anything can be accomplished if you put your mind and your resources to it. What if we start with one Oliver and then, in a few years there are 10 Olivers? What if that's not one organization, but 10 organizations doing that, right? It can just start with a seed, but it's great to see how that seed can sprout and can create opportunities for so many different people.
We have to do this immediate work of creating relief, and we have to continue to advocate, and we have to examine ourselves and how our values have been contributing to the kinds of issues that we see.
So now we have to think about how we're reimagining, dismantling, deconstructing, and then now reconstructing the right kinds of systems, right? That are going to help those who are most in need. It takes the courage, right? The civic courage of individuals who are in positions of power and leadership in legislative spaces, to really enact laws and policies and pass legislation that really help those individuals who are suffering the most. But again, that can be risky. And are we willing to, put our own opportunities at risk for those who are most in need?
Being able to cope with what I have to day by day and not remember all the things that I've been through. Try to put my life back online to where it used to be.
It's like a new life, and as you see, the light shines, and again, I have to tell you how dark that other place had become with the grief, with the depression. I'd started drinking so much that I wasn't even getting out of bed half the time, and I had no more hope for the future. I knew God had a plan for me, but I'm like, God, you made a mistake, because this is the worst I've ever been in my life. I like to look up at the clouds. I like to see the sunset. To look outside and yet be safely at home is a beautiful thing, man.